I'd now like to introduce our first, a speaker who has the lived experience of what it's like to have a diagnosis of a severe mental illness. And let me just progress the slide. I'm going to do my best without the correct accent, pronouncing Joanna Sotiropoulos. And just before I ask Joanna to come up in a second, it was only 7 months ago that Joanna was diagnosed at the age of 20 with a severe mental illness. And when I spoke to her last week, she told me about some of the challenges that she faced and has faced over those 7 months, as well as the support and understanding that she's had, particularly of her family, and what a difference that has made. And I guess there are things that all of us learn when we go through challenging situations, and really what Joanna's going to be talking about is what she's learned so far, and really how it can inform and assist us when it comes to supporting young people who may be going through a similar situation. So as soon as Joanna is mic'd up, I'm loving the technology here. I will get Joanna to come up, and okay, I think we're almost ready to go. And we are. So please join me in warmly welcoming Joanna Sotiropoulos.
So a big good morning to everyone in the room. I want to thank you all for joining us at the PHN's Youth Severe Mental Health Forum, and I would also like to thank the PHN for having me here today to speak to you. I always like to start any speech of mine, just like everyone else, with an acknowledgement to the traditional owners of the land on which we meet here today, and I would also like to pay respect to elders past and present. Before writing this speech, I kept on thinking to myself, how am I going to tell a room full of strangers that I have bipolar? Well, it looks like that's how you do it. You just get it out of the way. Yes, I have bipolar, and no, I don't bite. Some other information about me: I'm 20, but I'm turning 21 this year, and I study Commerce Arts at the University of New South Wales. And when I'm not studying, which is more often than not, I watch more TV than recommended. Enough about me, now let's get back to mental health. Being pretty young to the game, and yes, the game that is mental health, my experiences are fairly limited, but they've given me 15 minutes, so I'm going to really spread it out. And I feel like it's important to share my journey with mental health, which has had more ups and downs in my mood. I also feel like it's important to mention that I use humour as a means to deflect, as a deflecting device, so feel free to laugh at my jokes. And despite spending a good 3 years seeing my psychologist faithfully, I came to that conclusion by watching TV. My first telltale warning signs that things weren't going 100% right for me was a ritual I used to perform in year 11 and 12 before any of my exams. I used to put a ton of pressure on myself, and because of it, I would refuse to eat before any one of them. Then I would drink a Barocca nervously to sort of trick my body into thinking it had some nutrients. And just before each exam, I would just vomit it all back up. So it's just pretty gruesome. And high school was also the birthplace of my first panic attack, so not so fond memories. It was my business studies trial paper, and I looked at the question for what seemed like 20 minutes, and I just, for the life of me, I couldn't answer it. I left to have a toilet break, but I just broke down and cried. A teacher took me to the side and she gave me a really complimentary pep talk. I managed to stop hyperventilating and she took me back in. I would love to say that was the first and the last of my panic attacks, but more continued at uni. Many people have explained the crippling effects of unrealistically high expectations, and I never realised that I had unrealistically high expectations until I went to university, and this golden experience everybody had been telling me about just really seemed brass. I went to a small school, so I felt like a big fish. I felt like a big fish in a little pond, and I was catapulted into UNSW, which boasts 57,000 students. And without a single friend from high school, I was feeling all alone. That was bearable, but getting credits was not. I was dethroned. No one at this stage had told me P's get degrees. I was looking to carry my inflated high school marks into university, and I never realised how much I had been spoon-fed until my university lectures left me hungry. I spent many hours completing assignments by just looking at blank Word documents, hoping that this would increase the word count. And I remember one tutorial where everything just became a tad unbearable and I was struggling to hold back tears as I Googled UNSW psychological services. By sheer luck, they had an availability. I spoke to a lady who was lovely, she was sympathetic, and she offered me a box of tissues. Only to tell me in our second appointment that I was not in dire straits because I didn't have any, I was fine and I had no major strifes, as I was not in dire straits like other patients with substance abuse issues, failing grades and financial troubles. I was pretty pissed, but I guess that's what happens when they offer free services without the manpower or the resources. They can't keep up with demand, so they start shoveling people out and prioritising. So I decided I was going to try another avenue. I was going to speak to my family doctor, and I did. She gave me a K10 and she recommended me to a psychologist, Betsy, who I still see today. She listens to me, validates my feelings. She taught me ways to manage my anxiety, and we challenged my thoughts together, which was revolutionary. And even though I still struggle to zoom out of my stresses, it's helped me. I feel like my journey with mental health can be divided into two parts. Part one being anxiety and part two being bipolar. And typically, to be diagnosed formally with bipolar, most people suffer from an episode of depression and then mania. I, however, did not fit this criteria. I had a manic episode first. At the end of last year, when semester 2 was coming to a close, in October, there was just enough time for my world to flip itself inside out. Over a period of just 3 days, I couldn't sleep a wink. I quit my tutoring job with an inappropriate letter of resignation, started writing these long, elaborate messages counselling everyone I knew, from embarrassingly enough, my university lecturer, to good friends, acquaintances and family members. I can't make out the pieces, but I was sure I was going to die of cancer. And even though I was perfectly healthy, I was convinced it was the end of the world. Reality had obviously ceased. My mother, being bipolar herself, could kind of see that I was losing it, and for a brief second she decided to go to the hairdressers, only for everything to hit the fan. Her partner and my sister were left with me, and I must have started saying really out-of-character things. They freaked out and they called the ambulance, who came with the police. This part I kind of remember. After recently becoming an organ donor, when they showed up, I believe the authorities were there to harvest my organs. So I threw my card at them, and the rest was a haze. I know I was sedated, and my sister was a complete mess, and I remember her crying, which kind of fueled my the end of the world delusion. And I woke up later in Banks House, detained under the Mental Health Care Act, which I still have mixed feelings about even today. All in all, the most devastating part regarding this incident was I lost my favourite red pair of thongs, and I stayed in Banks House for a total of 6 weeks. And to anyone who has ever had to eat hospital food understands the pain I had to struggle with. And I also had to share a TV with over 30 people. That one really hurt. And honestly, I don't remember much of my stay. I was basically drugged most of the time, but this was under medical supervision, of course. I know I had bad reactions to particular medications at the time. Not all products work for everyone. But with a critical eye, my stay at Banks House and treating my bipolar by myself allowed me to experience the system. And here are some of my criticisms, praises and recommendations. The staff at Banks House were really great, especially the nurses. They put up with me at my most annoying. During my stay, I would proceed to tell them nurses are heroes. I meant it and I mean it. And as I previously mentioned, my mother also has bipolar, but so does her sister. And it's fair to say I visited a lot of mental health facilities in both the private and public system. The nursing in both is on par, however the activities in the private sector are unparalleled. They have gyms, yoga classes teaching techniques for managing anxiety and depression, gardens, open spaces, libraries. And at Banks House, I was struggling and failing to entertain myself. The only thing I could rely on was the ping pong table and visitors. I understand these activities may be expensive, but yoga doesn't require any equipment, and neither does educational classes. Another interesting phenomenon that I encountered was the assumption that just because I'm a young person in a mental health facility, I have a substance abuse issue. And this stigma mainly came from the nursing staff. I was offended at the presumption, mainly because I've never tried any illicit substances, and because I teach kids the dangers and the pitfalls of drug and alcohol abuse. So frankly, the irony was unbearable. And once they were aware of my family history, it allowed me to be framed as the perfect victim of a mood disorder. And seeing their change in behaviour made it clear that there was indeed prejudice. Also, the stigma against those suffering from addiction must be shifted. We can't keep condemning people that need support to deal with their issues. After all, addiction is complex and should not be debased. And before being diagnosed with bipolar, I volunteered for Headspace, and I still do now. Anyway, one of their campaigns really struck me, and it was called The Big Stigma. And growing up with my mum, I always knew she had bipolar, which meant in my childlike mind she needed a lot of sleep and took white tablets. So I never really saw anything wrong with it, but I knew there was stigma because it was always understood as an unmentionable. And I've seen a lot of progress been made around mental health regarding public awareness and understanding, especially contrasting my experience with my mum's. So I never thought of a health institution as a place to promote stigma, but I was wrong. I conveniently had my episode just before exam period. Therefore, to get some extra time, I filled out a whole bunch of special consideration forms. And when I asked the doctors to tell the university about my brush with bipolar, they explained to me it was not in my best interest to tell the university, as they would discriminate against me at will for any potential opportunities and internships. And this really broke me. I was actually shattered. All of my short life's work ruined. So they wrote acute stress disorder on my documentation as a cover-up. I, however, managed to crash and burn even with my special considerations exam and failed one subject completely. This time, writing acute stress disorder wasn't going to cut it. So as an advocate of the truth and the whole truth, I asked for my fear remission statement to have discharge papers and a letter explaining my diagnosis with bipolar. Because the institution which I worked my butt off to get into, the same one which I contribute money to in the form of HEX, that pays for their staff and building upgrades, needs to know. And what psychiatrists don't tell you is what they do at times is a bit more, it's just as hit or miss as a drug dealer finding the right high for you. Controversial comparison, one has no formal education and cooks the batch in the toilet. The other has gone through over 8 years of grueling university and has a wide range of experience prescribing medication. Nonetheless, it takes a long time to find your perfect balance because everyone's different. Also, during this time, I was constantly being jabbed to check my lithium levels, which made me feel like a human voodoo doll. Meanwhile, lurking in the background is a variety of side effects, and here are just some I've experienced. Acne, tremor, drowsiness, weight gain, low blood pressure, just to name a few. And maybe it's due to the fact they don't want to alarm you, but they never mention potential side effects. Instead, you need to consult WebMD, and without a hypochondriac mentality, you can identify which tablet is screwing you and how, and then ask them to fact-check your hypothesis. And no one tells you that it takes even longer to start functioning at a state that would be described as normal. When I arrived at Bain's house, I was manic. I left momentarily and returned psychotic. Was readmitted, only to be discharged depressed. Now, that's what you call an emotional roller coaster. And the tablets frankly suck, but of course I take them and will continue to do so for the foreseeable future. I've been told not to use the phrase "till I die," even though it's accurate because it's too morbid. And for a person who religiously takes vitamins, taking lithium each day was a hard pill to swallow. I don't understand the psyche, but you just have to adjust to the idea until it becomes routine. And after leaving Bain's house, I found it extremely hard as a young person to navigate the channels to find an adequate healthcare practitioner like a psychiatrist. And I have a trusted GP who has a whole range of doctors. So I can't imagine what it's like with someone without that point of reference. It can be difficult to find someone that works for you, and it can also be difficult to find someone that works for you at your price point. Plus, many of the practitioners in the public sector at a low price point move on to private practice or elsewhere, so it's hard to build those relationships. My mom still fondly talks of her first psychiatrist, and they worked together for over 28 years. And I understand that's an unrealistic time frame, but it's good to have a rapport with someone that's managing your health. And I can see that there are avenues out there in the public sector to help young people accessing service. I know Bain's House had an early intervention team. They were supposed to contact me when I was discharged. This never happened. I had to follow up, and I was told that due to the fact I'd already been seeing my own psychologist and continued to do so, I couldn't have access to the psychiatrist as they worked as a team. So in my experiences, there are failures in service. I don't know if I've been oversaturated with American TV, but it struck me with a variety of support groups I've seen over the years, whether it be for rape victims, children of abuse, or cancer patients. So I thought to myself, I would love to be part of a support group, for young people with bipolar, or just people with bipolar or severe mental illness. I don't know the effectiveness of support groups, I haven't researched it, but I like the idea of having someone there who's sort of been through the same thing as you and is there to guide you, to make you feel less alone. And I would like to end with a final note. I'm one of the lucky ones. I have a really supportive and understanding family who just get it. My mum and my sister came to see me at Bain's House every day for over 6 weeks. I have really great friends who are eager to learn about my mental illness, and most importantly, I have a range of healthcare practitioners who I consult on my mental health with regularly, and they're all instrumental parts of my journey to recovery. But not all young people dealing with severe mental illness have these support systems, and this needs to change. Thank you.